breaking news this hour, an unspeakable act of violence at a church in Texas. 26 people are dead, 20 injured after a gunman's rampage. It happened at the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas, about 30 miles east of San Antonio. Two law enforcement sources have now identified the shooter as 26-year-old Devin Patrick Kelly. Officials say the gunman, dressed all in black, was wearing a ballistic vest with an assault-type rifle when he opened fire on the First Baptist Church. The victims range in age from 5 to 72 years old. Texas Governor Greg Abbott became emotional as he described the magnitude of this tragedy.
As a state, we are dealing with the largest mass shooting in our state's history. There's so many families who've lost family members. Fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters. The tragedy, of course, is worsened by the fact that it occurred in a church, a place of worship, where these people were innocently gunned down.
We're told the shooter died after a brief chase into a neighboring county. There's still no word on a motive, but we are getting new information about how the attack unfolded. Listen to this.
At approximately 11:20 this morning, a suspect was seen at a Valero gas station in Sutherland Springs, Texas. He was dressed in all black. That suspect crossed the street to the church, exited his vehicle, and began firing at the church. That suspect then moved to the right side of the church and continued to fire. That suspect entered the church and continued to fire. As he exited the church, a local resident grabbed his rifle and engaged that suspect. The suspect dropped his rifle, which was a Ruger AR assault-type rifle, and fled from the church. Our local citizen pursued the suspect at that time. A short time later, as law enforcement responded, that suspect, right at the Wilson, Guadalupe County line, he ran off the roadway and crashed out and was found deceased in his vehicle. At this time, we don't know if it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound or if he was shot by our local resident who engaged him in gunfire. We know he's deceased in the vehicle. The suspect has not been completely identified. We believe he's a young white male, maybe in his early 20s. He was dressed in all black tactical type gear and was wearing a ballistic vest.
President Trump, speaking abroad from Japan, called the shooting an act of evil, adding, quote, "We cannot put into words the pain and grief we all feel." CNN's Kaylee Hartung has been following the story from the very beginning. And Kaylee, what more can you tell us about the victims?
26 dead, Anna, as a result of this morning's shooting, ranging in age from just 5 years old to 72 years old. Authorities not ready to publicly share the names of those victims with us yet, as they say their first priority is to the victims' families, to ensuring that they are receiving the information they need and its most accurate form. Many people gathering for a vigil tonight and at a community center just down the street from the church to get that information, to have access to local authorities and officials, and to learn the fate of those who were attending the First Baptist 11 a.m. church service this morning. And officials also say there are approximately 20 others being treated in area hospitals with conditions ranging from minor to critical. So you hope this number, 26 dead, doesn't grow. Already the largest mass shooting in the history of the state of Texas, but another 20 or so individuals fighting tonight.
Kaylee Hartung, thank you. I want to bring in our panel of law enforcement experts to discuss the investigation moving forward. Cheryl Dorsey is a retired LAPD police sergeant. James Galliano is a former FBI supervisory agent, and Art Roderick, a former assistant director for the U.S. Marshal's Office. Art, you and I haven't had a chance to talk, so I'll start with you. Police say this suspected gunman was dressed in all black tactical gear. He was wearing a bulletproof vest. He was armed with an assault-type rifle. It gives the impression that this was carefully planned, but the sheriff just moments ago told me that this gunman had no connection to this church, was not from that community. What do you make of that?
Well, I've checked with some law enforcement sources too, and he might not be from that particular county, but I think he is from the surrounding area. The interesting thing, there's a couple things that came out of that presser that, or the bit that just played a little while ago, that it's an Ruger AR-15, which to me is the nomenclature for a semi-automatic .223 caliber assault rifle. And if he's firing through the walls of that church, that very small building, those bullets are going to go right through there and just hit people inside the church very easily. Usually the bullets coming out of an AR-15 travel at about 3,300 feet per second and are made to hit bone and create as much tissue damage as it can in the body. So that is a horrible weapon to be shot with, and I have to tell you that I hope the casualty count doesn't go up, but it very well could.
Right now, 26 dead, about 20 others who are injured. Witnesses say they know people personally who are among those injured in critical condition. James Galliano, does it surprise you that this gunman apparently was not from that community specifically?
Again, and you and I have spoken about this earlier this evening, trying to determine motive. And motive tells us a lot of things. And one of the things is, was this a target of opportunity? Was this somebody that just became unraveled that morning for something as innocuous as his coffee wasn't hot enough? Or was this something premeditated? And then again, to Art's point, we want to build this out further to determine whether or not there were co-conspirators. The law enforcement at the press conference have indicated that there doesn't seem to be any more imminent threat. That doesn't necessarily mean that there weren't other folks that might have been participatory, some of them doing it purposely, possible, or even unwitting. So all of that's got to be built out. And the last thing I want to say about the weapons again, they were very careful in describing this as a Ruger assault rifle. And assault rifles have different definitions by jurisdiction inside the country. But we know that it generally includes a semi-automatic weapon, as Art pointed out.
A .223 is what we are told from officials who are familiar.
.223, which is also a 5.556 caliber NATO round. Those are interchangeable terms for the same type of round.
Put that in layman's terms for us.
That's just the caliber. That's how, at the NATO level, because you're using it in the military, it's the military round for the old style M16.